Welcome to the Exit Rich podcast, where the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing companies, Michelle Seiler Tucker, is dedicated to helping you find the path to retire rich and move on to your next adventure by exiting your business for the desired dream price you deserve. Get ready to exit rich with your host, Michelle Seiler Tucker.
Another episode of Exit Rich. Every Wednesday, we bring you the best and some of the greatest entrepreneurs that are doing huge things in the world and really changing the way that we do business and really dropping all these golden nuggets. So I can't be as more excited as I am right now to welcome Chris Hood to the show. Now, I took Chris's bio and I will tell you, out of all the guests I've interviewed, and I've interviewed a lot of famous guests, Chris Hood has a very extensive bio. He has done so much, and I love it. I love it when he tells me in his spare time he does this and this and this, because I'm like, where is the spare time? So Chris Hood is an internationally recognized voice, thought leader, and digital strategist with over 35 years of experience in online entertainment marketing for TV, film, music, and video games. Wow. So we've had some marketing people on the show before, but nobody that specializes in TV, film, music, and video games. Today, he hosts the Chris Hood Digital Show, which I will be a guest on very soon, right, Chris?
Yeah.
And he works with companies worldwide to develop digital and innovation acceleration strategies. Previously, Chris worked as the head of digital business strategies and platforms for who's the biggest company out there? Google, where he engaged with Fortune 500 companies to create digital transformational programs and build cultures of innovation. While at Google, he launched and hosted a weekly business podcast, what we just mentioned, the digital show. Chris also worked as a director for Fox Broadcasting, where he developed storytelling technologies. I can't wait to dig in and find out more about his storytelling technologies. And he innovated new mechanisms for viewers to engage with television content for shows like, you ready? Glee, Gotham, Sleepy Hollow, The X Factor, and American Idol, which by the way is still on. his work his work included developing TV everywhere products and interactive media platforms for streaming services. In his spare time, Chris teaches in the business and informational technology departments at Southern New Hampshire and University and University. I'm sorry, New Hampshire Southern University and New Hampshire University and Colorado Technical University. See, it's so long, I'm stuttering now. Chris has been delivering digital strategies to some of the largest brands in the world, such as Universal, Doritos, Reebok, Columbia Pictures, Emmys, and so many more. So, welcome to the show, Chris. We're delighted to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Wonderful. So, let's get right into it because I know we're going to have a whole bunch of questions. I know the audience is going to participate. And so, let's just dig in. So, please share a little bit of your background, of your life story, and really how did you get into this industry? I know you did start working at a movie theater, right?
Yeah. And my first job was actually working at a local movie theater where I fell in love with the sights and sounds of movies. And I spent a lot of time, obviously, cleaning movie auditoriums and popping popcorn and selling candy and tickets and all of the.
But you got to start
Yeah, you
somewhere,
have to
right?
start somewhere. I tell a lot of people one of the best jobs you could ever have is working at a movie theater. You learn so much. But from that spawned this love for movies. And when I got into college, I obviously thought, well, I'm going to get into the movie industry. I'm going to be a director. I'm going to produce movies. That's where my passion was. At some point in time, I realized that maybe movies was not the right career choice. And I went into technology. But
Uh,
became very interesting was this connection as we started to get into the late 90s and into the 2000s, this correlation between technology and business and how film was just a form of entertainment that we started to experience online. And so I was able to take all of these different concepts and blur them together, merge them into a job and a career, which focused a lot of attention on building storytelling technologies, building engagement models between the products that we are all passionate about, and then the business of how to make entrepreneurs, small businesses, enterprise businesses successful through those relationships.
And so, what age were you when you were working at the movie theater?
17.
I'm not going to ask your age today, but
Older.
obviously, older. Obviously, you've done a lot, and you've really expanded your career. So, you and I talked before you came on my show, and we talked about, business owners sometimes really struggle when it comes to hiring marketing companies. Can you provide an overview of your company's marketing philosophy and approach? Because I know it's very unique to everybody else's.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, when we think about marketing, it's about understanding what the consumer experience really means to a business. And it's a lot
Mhm.
more than just coming up with colorful words and flowery descriptions of products to try to entice somebody to come and buy your products. This is really
Mhm.
about connecting at a consumer level, understanding what their challenges, expectations, needs are, and then meeting those with your products and services to be successful. So,
Mhm.
when we think about traditional marketing, I think a lot of people out there think, well, it's the mechanism by which I drive my sales. And I think that's partially true, but there's a lot more to marketing than just trying to drive sales. I actually say often your marketing goals are not your sales goals. They're completely
Mm.
different. And if you
Mhm.
start to understand what those differences are and focus on, again, what that marketing strategy is and what those goals for your marketing, uh, you know, uh, needs are, then you can start to really fine tune what the customer is expecting from you and message that so that you can be more successful.
So your marketing goals are not the same as your sales goals,
Yep.
correct? I think that's a big point. So if my team can put that in there, your marketing goals are not the same as your sales goals because a lot of business owners look at it like that. Coach Kenny says nice. So I think he likes the information so far. So what sets your marketing company apart from others in the industry? Because there's so many marketing people out there. It's kind of like people are like, oh, what am I going to do next? I'm just going to go become a marketer.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of strategy and thoughts that goes into it. So what sets you apart?
Well, just to be, just to clarify from the start, we're not just a marketing organization, right? We deal with various forms of digital strategies. So if we think about the entire life cycle, customer life cycle or customer journey, there's various
Hmm.
aspects of that that have nothing to do with marketing, but are still
Mm.
critical for business success. So it could be as simple as the types of devices or interfaces that they are engaging with you in. We're very familiar with the concept of a smartphone. Well, not everybody needs a mobile app in order to reach their customers. Interfaces are becoming more ubiquitous, they're everywhere. You have screens that you engage with at the grocery store, at the gas station. The gas station pumps have screens on them that you are engaged with and now are presenting you with promotional opportunities. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
not even just screens. We all have this, or at least we know what smart devices are. You can say, okay, Google, or hey, Alexa, and you can get information without a screen and without actually touching anything. So these
Mm-hmm.
devices are the ways that people are engaging with your business, but that's not necessarily marketing. There's elements of that, and you have to understand that they are connecting with you in these devices. But the entire strategy is we discover who you are, we begin to engage with you, we are presented with an opportunity. We have communities that are out there that are helping influence and grow the loyalty of your business, as well as then what what the purchasing process looks like. My company deals with all of those value chains throughout the process.
And other marketing companies don't,
Yeah.
obviously. Many of them don't. Okay. How do you tailor marketing strategies to fit different businesses and industries? I think you're going to say marketing is marketing, but maybe not.
Yeah, I sort of touched on this when we talked. Look, to me,
Yeah.
marketing is marketing. It doesn't matter what company, what business, what industry. I think there will always be nuances that we can dive into, but it is simple as this. All businesses have customers. All businesses are trying to reach those customers and get customers to purchase or use their service. That's it.
Mhm.
There is no
So
magic to this.
is there a difference in marketing to B2C versus B2B?
No. And I'll tell you why.
Really?
This is also something fascinating that we talk about often, or I talk about with enterprises often. No, 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 we're B2B. I go, okay, well, let's present this premise.
I would be that client. No, I'm B2B.
Okay, let's present this premise. Your customer, so you can call it B2B, but they're still your customer. So you can call them a C or a B or whatever you want to call them. But your customer has customers. And what most organizations are doing are trying to sell a product, a service to the business to business. And they're not thinking about the end consumer that ultimately has to use it. So I'll give you an example. A I was having a conversation with an insurance company, and we're like, "Well, what are we going to do to sell to this other insurance company?" I go, "Well, what do their customers need?" "Well, we don't know. That's not what we're trying to solve for." I go, "Yes, but if you can offer a product to that company that they can then in turn offer to their customers are going to buy more from that business, which in turn is going to need your product." And so you always have to think about how that end consumer is going to be engaging with your customers, because if you don't, you're missing a huge
So do
opportunity.
you think a lot of marketing companies take that into consideration?
No, I think most marketing companies are trying to solve whatever you ask them to solve. They're not willing to actually dive into the challenges or the consumer perspective, look at it from a customer empathy point of view, and try to build that value chain all the way back to who is the customer. And again, it's not your business to business who is your customer, it is their customer that ultimately you have to serve.
Good point. And I think when you're marketing, you're really, in my mind and most of my clients' mind, are hiring a marketing expert. But in many cases, like you said, they're just trying to solve a problem or get immediate results. They're not really looking at the strategy behind it and the customer experience. I've always said you have to create a wow customer experience. Otherwise, you won't attract those customers, or if you do, you won't have you won't have a very long lifetime customer value relationship. Do you agree?
That's correct.
All right. So there's no real tailoring. A business is a business is a business. Kind of like I say in sales. Selling a business is because everybody's like, "Oh, Michelle, have you ever sold a manufacturing plant? Have you ever sold a car dealership? Have you ever sold, this or that?" I'm like, selling a business is a business is a business. There's just different uniqueness. There's different nuances that you have to know. But at the end of the day, the processes are the same. So it sounds like that's the same in marketing. So tell us, do you have any case studies, like any real good client stories that you've worked with in the past
Uh,
that you've helped them transform? Because I know you're all, you know what? Let's back up for a second. I know you're all about the storytelling, right? Tell us real quick about the storytelling and how important, imperative that is in clients' campaigns.
well, stories are everything. We connect with stories. Stories have been around since the dawn of human existence. We go to the movies because of stories. We read
Mhm.
books because of stories. We listen to music because it transports us into new worlds and ways of feeling and thinking. Video games are giant interactive stories. Stories are
Mhm.
everywhere. Every brand should have a story. You don't just wake up one day and say, I'm offering a product, and then people come, I guess, unless you're selling pet rocks, which was a thing way back when.
They
But
still have a story.
yeah, but at some point in time, your brand, your product, your service has a story to it. You've got to
Yeah.
craft that story in a way that brings the emotional connection and fulfills the needs and expectations that consumers have? And how are you going to solve that problem through storytelling? And really,
So
that's
give
what it's all
me
about.
So give us give my listeners, because they're listening to this and going, "Oh my goodness, how do I interact? How do I, include my story into my marketing, and how does that work?" And many marketing people never think about that, and certainly never do it. Can you give us an example of a campaign that you ran where you included this? Well, it was all around the story brand.
I mean, there's lots. Instead of trying to give a use case, let's just break this down. What is it? What do
Okay.
you have to do? Well, first off, you have to decide what is your story. And I think most people who are listening probably have some understanding of what that is. You know,
Well, everybody has a story. Every entrepreneur has a story of how they got into business,
exactly.
just like
And why
you
they
started
started the
a movie
business.
theater.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
right.
start there. That's your premise. Now try
Okay.
to break it down, and how are you going to communicate that story? You can do it on a podcast, right? Come on and share your personal story and your goals and whatever. But some people take that to the next level and you say, well, our brand itself has its own story. And some of that is influenced. There was there's a marketing company that I'm aware of in Switzerland, or Sweden, I'm sorry, in Sweden. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name. I just remember the concept of this. And they built their entire brand around two founders. And for the sake of this conversation, we'll just call them like Smith and Jones, right? And so they named their entire marketing organization, their agency, Smith and Jones Marketing. And they had their profile photos hung up into their lobbies, and they just went all out on Smith and Jones as being their, founding fathers of the marketing agency. The the story is though that they weren't real people. They were made up people, right? To present this kind of corporate image that they wanted to portray. And I think it's a fascinating example of how you can make up a story that drives a certain type of clientele or brand image out into the public so that people are interested in what you serve. And, so storytelling can be real, it can be made up, it can be make believe, it could be a certain voice that you want to portray. If we just compare, like, the voice of Starbucks is different than the voice of McDonald's, but I'm sure you both, anybody who's listening understands both of those voices pretty quickly. And that's what you have to try to achieve is how do you get your a consistent voice message story out to the public and intertwined into your messaging, advertising, and social accounts.
Isn't it important though to be transparent when you are creating that brand? Number one. And number two, I always tell my clients when I help them exit rich, you have your company brand and you have your personal brand. If the company is completely branded around that individual, it's going to be very difficult to sell. Like a Tony Robbins, for example. Tony Robbins ended up doing an ESOP to his employees because he wasn't able to sell himself. And anyway, going back to those 2 questions, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to make that decision whether or not you're going to personally brand yourself or brand a business. I my
I believe you should brand
Yeah,
both.
I have both. I have,
Yeah.
my website, chrishood.com, as well as my agency, which is chdigital.com. Now, CH obviously stands for Chris Hood, but I could also say that it means anything, right? I could say it means Cloudy House, right? Cloudy House Digital. So the story becomes, how do I want to brand that CH as part of CH Digital? But ultimately, CH Digital and ChrisHood.com are completely different brands with completely different identities, completely different social media accounts, all for very specific reasons as well. ChrisHood.com, my personal brand, and me, focuses on thought leadership and conversations like we're having today, ultimately to maybe drive business to CH Digital, which focuses on enterprise and corporate wide marketing and digital strategy initiatives. But very clear, distinctive, different business models and brands.
And I believe it's important to be transparent. I know that you said you could make up a story, but the whole thing to me, for entrepreneurs and businesses, I mean, we sell large size businesses, is to really be transparent and get that inspiring story out because many of my entrepreneurs, like we've got a gentleman that built $100 million company and he started selling stuff out of his pickup truck at the age of 16. And I think these stories are so inspirational. So I think it's important to be transparent. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Look, I think transparency is critical in most areas of business. Branding and marketing
Absolutely.
is one of these challenging ones because look, there's no marketing out there that's truthful. that's 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 the bottom line.
Well, that's not true. Let's
Mark,
change that.
marketing is intended to be deceptional. uh, so
So you're saying none of the marketing is truthful?
I look,
Well,
even when we have good intentions to deliver a truthful message in marketing, it can come back and bite us. Marketing is all about play on words and ensuring the right accuracy of every word is precisely meant for exactly the context of what that's fine. That's not to say that you can't be honest in that process or be transparent about who you are as a brand, or again, communicate your story through that advertising or marketing efforts, right? So,
mm,
yes,
okay.
transparency definitely is critical. I think more importantly is how you come across in your community, and you have to be
Mm,
authentic in that process. Now, you can say that
1000%.
that's transparency, but I think there's certain things that you can hide or not communicate about and still be authentic with your loyal customers or your community. And I think that's the
Mhm.
difference.
Great. We just had Dr. Meisner on the show, founder of BNI, the largest business network in the world. And he is now marketing his own brand. So it's always been BNI, BNI, BNI. Now he's out there marketing Dr. Meisner. So we have a couple of questions from the audience. Stefan asks, how do you ensure alignment between a client's brand voice and the marketing campaigns you develop?
That's a challenging one. It's a challenging one for a lot of factors. Turnover rate is one of the biggest. Like if I get somebody in, it's like, okay, establish my voice. And let's say they're my social media person. They write the same way. They've established that voice. And then 2 years down the line, they leave and I bring in somebody else. Do you shift your voice? How do you maintain that voice? Like it's a very challenging way of looking at it. Bel
And it's ever changing too,
Yeah,
right?
well, it could be ever changing. It could be ever changing based on cultural, scenarios, marketplace situations, bad press, good press, news, like all of that could change what your
It's good
voice
press,
becomes.
bad press, and Donald Trump press.
So, believe it or not, there's some AI tools that are out there right now to help you manage your voice.
Oh,
And what it's
wonderful.
doing is it's looking at consistency in word use. Like for example, if I say if every time I welcome somebody I say hello, 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 and hello is my word, and then all of a sudden one day I decide to use hey to introduce somebody, it would flag like, hey is out of your voice. We use hello, right? So those types of things. The more traditional way of how it was done was you basically build a spreadsheet of keywords and words that you use and words that you don't use. So as you're formulating your social copy, you're like, well, I'm going to go to the words that I do use and not use the words that I don't use, and don't introduce words that, unless it's a new word that has become, relevant, for pop culture reasons. And you've got to be able to maintain that. You've got to be able to maintain the style, the word usage, the word count. All of those elements have to be considered.
We're going to get an AI in a few minutes. Podcast, what is your process for conducting market research and targeting audiences?
Most of market research information is already out there. Just do the research. Believe it or not, as well, AI. There's a lot of AI tools that can help you get to that market research data quicker. The challenge with some of that is dates and availability. So, for example, ChatGPT, as recent as 2021. However, there are now plugins that are available that will allow you to access more current and relevant data. But you could just go into ChatGPT and say, supply me with market information for Columbus, Ohio home services companies. And it's going to be able to provide you with some pretty good data. You'll still have to go and validate that data. And
Yeah, because it also lies to you.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it
We all
lies.
do.
It's only as smart as it's been programmed for. As that gets more advanced, there. But look, again, most of this data is out there. You just there's
It
plenty
is.
of stats and websites that support market data and market trends that you can go and research.
Kenny asks, what is the best marketing strategy for new companies without a voice or brand, like startups?
Make up a voice. Make up a brand. What is your voice? What is like if we were sitting down together, first thing I would say is like, tell me your story. Of like, how did you
Yep.
come up with your company? What is the company? What is the startup? What are you doing? What are you producing? Why are you doing it? What do you think you're trying to solve? Let's get that out there. And then what is your personal voice? How do you see this coming across to consumers? Do you want to come across as something classy like a Ritz Carlton? Do you want to come across as something simple like a McDonald's? Do you want to come off with something casual like social media? Like, there's some tones and vibes of other companies out there that you can hone in on and say, well, we want to be sort of like that company. I like that company. That's one of my favorite brands. Let's do that. Okay, let's continue to evolve this. Like, do you see yourself with a mascot? You know, do you see yourself with, what does your logo represent? Some people have like mascots. Well, do you see this mascot coming to life for you and being the voice in some way? Like, so there's things that you can start to do immediately and pretty quickly within a day to define what that voice and story is, what your brand colors are. What colors do you like? And you believe me, you don't have to go off and hire somebody with this strategy. This can come from you, and no one should be saying that they don't have time to do it. This is essentially how you're going to grow your business. So you have to set aside a day, 2 days to just go through that process of, what is my story? What's the voice? What companies do we want to mimic? What's our colors? What's and colors have moods. Colors have
Yeah, you can go
representations.
research that. That's easy to
Those are all
research.
researchable. Exactly. And there are tools out there that will help you with this process. There's like brand and story messaging generators. And you go
So
and you
let's
put
put
in some
that in the
ideas.
comments. Story, what'd you say? Brandon Story Messon what?
Brand and story generators.
Let's put that in the comments,
Yeah.
brand story generators to help people really come up with their brand. And I think it takes some soul searching. It takes, some, well, what did I come up with? I mean, why did I come up with this company? Like your story is perfect. You started a movie theater picking up trash and you were so inspired to go into that industry. My client who's selling $100 million business grew up in farming, has no formal education, and just kind of took off on his own at the age of 15, 16 and started selling to major grocery store chains. So you really got to dive into, why are you doing what you're doing? What moves you? What inspires you? And I love what you said earlier, Chris, about look at other brands that you like. You know, I always tell my clients, stop searching in your industry. Look outside
Oh,
of your industry. Look at
yes.
what Disney's doing, what Ritz Carlton is doing, what is Apple doing.
Yeah.
All these huge brands, and pick and choose from some of those brands that you want to incorporate into
Yeah.
yours.
The-
And the brand is always evolving too.
Yeah, this actually goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of is every business just a business? Every marketing is just a marketing. I did some work with Domino's Pizza, and during that time, they developed some really interesting technologies that would allow people to basically order pizzas faster. And Domino's, if you go to their corporate office, they have signs, around and basically the CEO of Domino's came out, about 10 years ago now and said, "We are not a pizza company. We are a technology company."
Mm.
And I share this story with a lot of businesses and positioning them on like how they could think about their own business. And usually the response I get is, yes, but we're not Domino's Pizza. And I'm like, but you're missing the whole point. You're, I, you have to be able to look at companies outside of your industry as being role models for what you want to accomplish.
Agree.
So you can look at like Disney as an example. Disney is a role model for thousands of businesses out there. Why? Because of how they treat their customers or their creativity process, imagination, the art of the possible. All of those things have nothing to do with what you're actually trying to sell. They are all part of who you become, who your brand is, what your marketing is all about. And that's what you have
Mm.
to think about.
I think, it kind of goes back to the question, what business am I in, right? What business am I in? What's my superpower? What business should I be in? If you watch the movie The Founder based upon a McDonald's story, Ray Kroc came in and some people said stole the franchise from McDonald's brothers, but he really started the franchise and blew it up. But if it wasn't for the advice of a banker, well, the advice of a gentleman that was listening to Ray Kroc's story in the bank when he kept saying, the banker kept saying, "Look, I'm over leveraged. I'm over leveraged. You're over leveraged. I can't lend you any money." And Ray kept saying, "But this is a good business. This is a great business. It's going to explode, and this and this and this." And the banker said, "I'm sorry." And then what happens? He walks out. The gentleman followed him out and said, "What business are you in?" And he said, "I'm in the restaurant business." He said, "No, you're not. What business are you in?" And he kept saying, "The restaurant business, restaurant business." He said, "No, you're in the real estate business." If Ray Kroc didn't listen to that gentleman right then and there, McDonald's would never be what it is
Yeah.
today. And they are in the real estate business. They're the largest real estate holding company in the world. So Mr. Wang has a question. What is your process for continuous? Did I read this already? What is your process for continuous optimization and improvement of marketing
Yep.
campaigns?
Clear goals, clear metrics.
There
So,
goes clear metrics.
so I mean, to overly simplify this, if let's say that you have a goal of the number of qualified leads, I want to increase the number of qualified leads. That's my marketing objective. Okay, well,
Mhm.
what do you want to increase it to? 100 qualified leads in the month? Great. Did you reach that? No, I got 50 out of 100 qualified leads this month. Okay, you're at
Mm.
50%. Like, that's it. Define exactly what your goal is and then build a metric or KPI, we call it, to reach that goal.
Yes, and then even a step further from that, I say, okay, I want 100 leads this month, and they get 50, but I would even take it a step beyond and say, okay, well, out of those leads, what is the monetary amount? What am I expecting out of those leads? For instance, on our marketing, they're saying, look, we can get you up to 30 valuations per month. So we ran the dollar amounts, we ran the projections for that. We put together our own 3-year plan to see what type of ROI that brings us. So I would take it one step further and really build that into your projections, build that into your ROI, because you can say, I want 100 new leads, but if you're having to hire all these people, if you're having to do all this stuff and it's not really profitable, maybe that's not the direction you want to go in. And somebody like Chris can probably help you figure that out.
Yeah.
Making sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Again, I would say that your again, marketing goals are not your sales goals, or marketing is not responsible for your financial success within your business. But if you put that aside, I would totally agree that you should be developing marketing goals that are going to help ensure your financial success, which is your
Exactly.
ROI, right? So, yeah,
Yep.
as an example, you might say, well, I want to get 100 new listeners on my podcast. And if you can't tell me, well, what's that going to do for the business? If there's no answer for that, then the argument would be, then don't focus on generating more listeners for your podcast. Focus
Exactly.
attention on something that's actually going to generate business value.
You have to look at it as what's going to generate the income and not just generate the income, because then so many business owners forget the biggest piece. what is the operating expense to generate that income?
Yep.
And am I really making a profit after the operating expense? Because you have to, if you have to go out and hire 10 to 15 people, you're paying for marketing, you're paying for this, you're paying for maybe new content, brochures, etc. Then it might not be worth it. So I always follow it out. Okay, we want this many leads, this many evaluations. This is what it's going to mean. This is how profitable. We don't have to hire really anybody else. We just have to get really sophisticated with the strategies that we're using and improve those.
Yep.
All right. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I we could use real world examples on that one. If we take the recent movie from Disney, Little Mermaid was 250 million in production cost. There's an estimate of about another 200 to 250 million dollars spent solely on marketing for that film.
Mm.
And then there's probably an additional 200 million, 250 million for distribution and rights out to theaters and whoever's distributing the film, licensing and all of that. So the total operating expense for the movie is about $750 million, whereas they spent $250 in marketing for it.
Wait,
No,
250,000 in marketing.
250 million.
Million,
Yeah.
million, million. Yeah. Okay. And how much did it generate?
It's currently worldwide, it's at 440 some odd million. So the
And total spend was 700 million?
750 million.
But what about all the promotional stuff that came out of that movie that they're selling?
Yeah, that's all included in that.
Oh, that's all
Yeah.
included. So they lost
So
money.
they're currently Disney's losing money in that scenario. But it gives you an example of like, we're going to focus $250 million in marketing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that because of all of the other expenses behind the scenes that you have to deal with, production costs,
Mhm.
distribution costs, royalties, everything else, doesn't mean that you're going to make up the money that you've spent.
Me build out their projections. And so that's right. And that's why I say take in consideration what the marketing is going to cost you and everything behind the scenes is going to cost you 1,000%. Now, you didn't have anything to do with that movie,
No,
right? Okay. All your movies made money?
I'd like to think so.
We'll say yes. All right. So let's kind of dive into the pitfalls of marketing because one of the biggest challenges that I've spent over $250,000 in marketing and really got nothing but excuses and why there were no results. And one excuse was, hey, my wife left me for another man and took all the money out of the account. So I had a much less budget. So, and all my clients come to me and say, Michelle, who do you recommend in marketing? I've spent so much money. I've wasted so much money. There's no ROI. And sometimes I think marketing, the industry can be the biggest con there is out there because everybody just goes up, puts up a website, says they're an expert at marketing, and they really are not an expert at marketing. So, what are some of the common pitfalls or challenges that companies encounter when implementing their marketing strategies? And let's just talk about due diligence and vetting and what we should be doing to protect these clients.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the big ones. It's vetting. You've got to find somebody first and foremost who you align with. And
Do that though.
yeah,
Like, how do you find these people? I found my marketing expert at a mastermind I'm a part of. It took me about 3 years to get to know him and see what he's doing for everybody else in the mastermind. But a lot of companies can't wait 3 years. They need to make decisions now.
yeah,
Do you have any resources for finding really good marketing people?
no. uh, I can tell you this. We can start with this. Like, you get what you pay for. So you have to understand that. And so don't go to Fiverr as an example looking for a marketing expert. They're
Oh,
not.
don't go to 99 Designs for a
Yeah,
logo.
I mean, there's a lot of sites out there that say, "Hey, we'll deliver," but unless you're able to like really sit down, have a conversation with a real person, and walk through what you want to accomplish, I would just steer away from them. Like, you know, anything that's
And then what about
online, like
checking
we'll do this for you
references?
online, I would just stay away from them because it's all pre-processed, pre-packaged, automated types of services that is not going to give you the one-on-one touch that you need to be successful. So that's the first thing.
Oh, yes. And what about checking references? Because everybody's like, here's my references, but you're only going to give out your good references.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say Google them, research them, anything that you can pull up on them, do that first and foremost. But, what other stuff that can you do to vet marketing agencies?
Well, you're going to have to do interviews. You're going to have to interview with them, right? So you're
Hmm.
going to have to. I agree that most vetting is like, give me a list of your references, and they're going to give you the good references. Try to
Correct.
find a list of references maybe that are not good. See if there are online reviews of the company. Like,
Right.
look for the one-star review, read the one-star review and see if it's a legitimate complaint or maybe it's not. Like, you've got to build that perspective in.
And that's a catch 22 because you want to go there for reviews, but there's a lot of negative reviews that are not really validated reviews because somebody got upset
Yeah,
about something,
exactly.
you know?
But that should be
And
able to give
people
you
can go out there
perspective.
and manage the company. What's
That
that?
but that should be able to give you some perspective of the company.
Yes.
The other thing I
Yes.
think you need to be able to do is vet them through a small project. Have a small project and say, okay, you can call it a trial run, you can call it a whatever you want. And if we go back to the example earlier, like I'm trying to reach 100 validated leads by this month. Uh, I want you to reach 100 validated leads for me this month. Like that's it. That's the only thing I want you to do and see what they do, see how they handle it, see how they communicate with you, see if they're proactively communicating with you throughout the month. Are they calling you and saying, it's week one, we're at 25, we feel we're on track? Or, it's week one and I don't think we're going to hit this, but we're still working on it, right? Like if
Mhm.
they're being honest with you and saying, 3 weeks out from our due date, it looks like we're struggling, and here's where we're struggling, but we just wanted to let you know we're still working on it. I think that's a good sign, right? That's
Yeah.
the transparency we were talking about earlier. But
Right.
I would
And if
expect
they
somebody to be reaching out to me week one, week two, week three, week four, through the entire process, giving me stats, telling me how they're doing, telling me what their challenges are, telling me what their conflicts are. All of that should be a part of a very small deliverable just to kind of test them and see if they're the right fit.
I think that's a great, great idea if we can put that in the notes. Start off vetting by small projects, give them a small project. And if they don't communicate at all, if they don't let um, how it's performing so far, then get rid of them quickly. That's where I say run, Forest, run.
Yeah. The first red flag is if somebody refuses to communicate with you because it's not going well. That's a red flag.
Absolutely. Or because they're so busy, they're so tied up, they can't get to
Right.
you. They don't have the team that they said they do,
Right.
you know. But I love that. Start with small projects. So ask Stefan asks, what steps do you take to mitigate the risk of overspending on marketing without achieving desired results? We talked a little bit about that. And I would say have an ironclad contract on deliverables as well.
Every single thing that you do should have a number associated to it. Have a benchmark. It should have a where are we today? So again, we'll use the leads because that's what we've been doing. If you're generating 50 solid leads every month consistently, 50, 50, 50, 50, that's your benchmark. That's where you're at. And if your goal is to improve that by 10%, 20%, whatever it is, then that's your goal. And then you are watching your agency and getting the reports and making sure that they are doing the work that you've paid for. And if they come back and they say, we need more money to be able to achieve the goal you have, that needs to be vetted, worked out, decided before you agree to it. Why? What are you going to do differently? What hasn't worked
Mhm.
so far? You know, and I will say that from just a baseline, from marketing budget 101, right? You should set what your marketing budget is for all marketing initiatives and channels. If that's 20% of your revenue, 30% of your revenue, 10% of your revenue, whatever, 40% of your revenue, like you set that and that's your budget. Don't go over it. That's, you may want to tweak that. You might want to say, well, I'm going to put a little bit more money this month into podcast and settle down a little bit more on the display ads, or I want to go up and down on this based on season, but it's never going to go past whatever that budget is. And I think it's if you tackle it in that way, and your marketing support understands that, then they have to work within that, and they're never going to be coming and saying, "Hey, we need more money from you."
Should be really identifying, what are those marketing channels that's getting the big, because it's kind of back to the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients or 20% of your channels or whatever you want to use that rule towards. And I would say it's the marketing company's job too to really monitor that and say, hey, you're really getting huge traffic on LinkedIn, YouTube, da da da. Let's have more ad
Yep.
spend over here. It's kind of like what I did with my clients during the pandemic. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm only gonna be able to stay in business for a few months. I said, no, that's not true. Let's go back to your overhead. Let's cut a bunch of stuff that you don't need. If you don't have people in the office, you can get rid of water, you can get rid of coffee, you can get rid of so many things. But the one thing you never cut is marketing. Now you look at all your channels and you see which ones are overperforming and which ones are underperforming, and you double down on the overperforming and get rid of the other ones. So that doesn't mean you decrease your budget. That means you just effectively increase it to the platforms that are working. And then the other thing I like to add is when we say leads, like, because this is my big thing, quality
Yeah.
leads. Because I've had marketing
Yeah.
companies bring me leads. I'm like, I'm not selling a $50,000 coffee shop. And I love you coffee shop owners. I do. And I've sold a whole bunch of you in the beginning. And so I can refer you out to who does sell those. But what is a quality lead for you? You really need to identify that and be on the same page with your marketing team. So I think we should switch a little bit now to AI. Unless there's any other golden nuggets you have to drop under pitfalls of
Yeah,
marketing.
no, all good.
Okay, so AI, that's taking the world by storm right now. So, how is artificial intelligence being used in marketing, and what are the potential benefits and challenges associated with its implementation? Because there's going to be the good and the bad, right? As with anything,
Yeah. The good and the bad and the ugly is
the
so,
good, the bad, and the ugly. That's right.
so AI is being used pretty dramatically now in marketing. The number one area that is being used is in generative content. So this is your ads, your voice that we talked about earlier, your SEO, uh, the blog post and content that you're writing. There's AI that we're seeing also across social media for social media distribution. Podcasting has introduced some elements of AI. So all of that is in. I want to create content and get content out into the world. AI has a huge impact on those areas today. What it's not having a huge impact on is in the sales process and support, customer support, sales, pretty much anything that is uh, after marketing. AI is still really struggling with today.
Let's give marketing a break here. Marketing can bring clients to your door. It's up to you to close
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And some really good marketing companies will listen to those calls, because they have certain phone numbers. They'll go back and listen to recordings. They'll do some quality assurance of their own because they want to make sure, especially if they share, if they do, participate in a revenue share, which I always suggest for business owners to look for those companies that will put their money where their mouth is and do some rev share because it speaks volumes of their confidence about being able to produce. And sometimes, many times, they'll listen to those calls. They'll check on you. They'll make sure that you guys are doing your job because marketing gets them there. Your sales team closes them. And so Hayden asks, how can AI algorithms be used to predict customers' behavior, anticipate market trends, and optimize marketing and anticipate market trends and optimize marketing strategies accordingly?
So there's a couple of different elements in there. The customer part is the easiest one. If you've got people who are visiting your website or engaging with you or are existing customers, repeat customers, AI will help you build profiles on them, personalize that. That's happening a lot of places today, and you may not even realize it. We talked about Starbucks earlier. Starbucks has AI built into their mobile application. McDonald's, there's actually a good use case where McDonald's implemented AI into their ordering process as part of their mobile app and started to recommend, like, hey, we see that you've ordered Big Macs for the last 5 times you've been here. Would you like a Big Mac, value meal again today? Yes. And as a result, they show substantial increase in their profits solely because AI is making personalized recommendations through their app, right?
Right.
So the profile for consumers is fairly easy to do with AI. When we start looking at the broader, the macro, the marketing trends that are out there, unless you have the data that you can input into AI and have AI do an analysis on that market data, then it's a little bit more harder for you to build a model that can, kind of predict what's happening. I think if you read a lot of publications and stay familiar with your market, you yourself should be able to begin predicting where the market is headed. The core of that, though, is listening to your consumer because your consumer is going to drive market change, and your market change is going to drive your business. So if you understand all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, if you understand what the consumer needs are first and listen to them and what their needs are, what their changing preferences are, then you can start to build your own market analysis and start to see how things are going to evolve.
Great answer. Melissa asks, Chris, do you find that most SMBs, especially ones with a longer history brand, word of mouth, understand that their website, while nice looking, especially ones with a longer history brand, word of mouth, understand that their websites, while nice looking, are unattractive to Google voice searches on mobile? Their sites are not selling for them. The sites are not selling for them because they are not being reached
Sure.
through true digital strategy.
Yep.
That's a great question.
So the answer is complex, but also simple. Your website is not going to sell anything for you. Your website obviously is your brand and identity, but ultimately it has to be simple to use. Consumers get frustrated pretty easily. Actually, there's a lot of research out there that shows that over 70% of consumers will abandon their shopping cart if it takes more than 2 or 3 steps to reach the shopping cart. So, for all of you who are like, well, I've got this is my, you go and you fill out a form and then you put stuff into your cart and then you have to, do you want to sign up for this? And then do you want to sign up for that? And then are we going to confirm your email? And then eventually you get to the checkout process. Like all of those steps, you've already lost half of your audience. And so you have to think again from a consumer perspective. You who are listening are all consumers. We are all consumers ourselves. If you went into the grocery store and the grocery store said today, we just bagged your 10 things of groceries for your family, and the bill is $200, and you pull out your credit card to pay or your debit card, and they say, "Oh, sorry, we don't take debit cards anymore. We only take cash." The odds of you leaving that grocery store is very high because that grocery store is not meeting your expectations. Your expectation is I buy groceries, I pay with my debit card. So the cash has all of a sudden confused you. Your website is no different than this. You have to make it easy and convenient for people to get in, find what they want, and check out. This is why Amazon is so popular, is because they have a concept of a one-click checkout. They've gotten
Mm.
it down to I click a button and I can pay, buy, and have delivered everything I want. And if your
Mhm.
website doesn't accommodate that type of experience, you'll have a challenge. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. Yes, a nice looking website is going to be valuable for you, but you also have to understand again what the consumer wants. I'm going to tell you another really quick story. I was working with the CEO of a fashion e-commerce platform, and she was getting a lot of abandoned carts, like a lot of abandoned carts. I said, "Well, how about we have a survey and we ask the customers, why did you abandon the cart?" And in the process, we'll give them a 10% discount so they can come back and maybe they'll buy something, right? So
Mhm.
we set up the survey, and it was one question, which was basically, why did you abandon the cart? And we gave multiple choice questions or answers, responses. The checkout process was too confusing. The
Mhm.
product was too expensive. I couldn't find what I was looking for.
Mhm.
You didn't have my size. We got about a
Mhm.
thousand responses. We put all of those responses together. The number one response by far was the product was too expensive. 70% said the product was too expensive. The CEO
Wow.
then said, well, let's change the checkout process. I think it's too confusing. I don't want to change the price of the product. Well, if you're not listening to the data, one, if you're not capturing the data, if you don't understand why people are abandoning your cart, and you're
Mhm.
not then doing anything about it, that's the digital strategy that you have to adhere to. You have to know why, you have to have the data to back it up, and then you have to actually do something about it, make the change, improve so that you can get the business sale.
Melissa came back and said, I mean that they think that they are being found organically by Google, but they really are not, as Google is working differently.
Ah,
Lead gen is not happening to get potential consumers, targeted consumers to the site to act on.
well, ignore everything I just said then, because all of that was
But it was still good information, Chris.
I mean, we're basically talking about SEO, which is how does Google find your website? How does your website come up into the the search results? How does Google help? So I'm a customer. I'm looking for a particular product. I have a problem. I type it into Google. Your product comes up. Your website comes up, right? And it's discoverable, and people then can visit your website, right? I'm guessing that's what we're talking about now. In that case, you know, there are a lot of tools out there that will show you one where you really are in the process, because also understand that if you go and you search for your own business yourself, you will appear closer to the top,
Mm,
because what Google does is it's posting relevancy, and it believes that your business is relevant because every time you do your own search for yourself, you click on it and it says, well, this is what they're looking for. And so it gets
mhm,
repositioned to the top. So there's a lot of people out there that says, "Oh, I'm number 1." Well, no, you're number 1 for you, for your own search. For somebody in a completely different state who's searching for the same term or keywords, you're probably number 25 on the list.
mhm,
There's a lot of websites out there that will show you what your true position is, and will also show you what things you should be doing with your website to improve your position, to get it moved up higher. And some of that has nothing to do with keywords. Keywords is a part of it. I search for this key, I find your website. Some of it is actually speed of your website, the style of your website, the way it's formatted, how fast it loads on a mobile device. Like there's all of these other technical elements that you have to adhere to as well so that it can move up. And again,
mhm.
there's tons of services out there that will show you and analyze your website for where your true position is and what technical things you need to do to improve your position. I hopefully I got that one right.
But it was good information both ways. All right, so we have so many more questions, but we're out of time here. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to talk about your upcoming book. How can AI powered tools assist in generating and optimizing content, including automated copywriting, image recognition, and video editing?
That's a big topic as well. I mean, look, AI can do a lot of things, and there's a lot of tools out there to help you with a lot of things. I will promote one of my favorites, and it's a service called Lately.ai. Lately.ai basically takes long form content like a blog post or a video or a podcast, audio or video. It actually listens to your voice, your business voice, whatever that is, and then analyzes by keywords. So let's say blue sky is a keyword. It will search through, or exit rich, we'll use exit rich. So the
Yeah.
AI will search for all of the audio clips where we talk about exit rich, and it will cut them into shareable slices of video and audio formats with social media content that has been crafted in your voice, and then schedule it to be published online, right? It's fabulous. And it's a great way to basically leverage AI to help you craft additional content, that you can publish out there through social media, video, audio, images, etc. The copyright thing, that's that's a whole nother legal conversation. Probably not, happy to talk about it offline. But yeah, lots of AI tools out there that do a lot of things. And if there's something specific you're looking for, I'm sure it's out there.
I have you come back on as a guest to kind of really talk through AI because it's on everybody's mind right now. By the way, Melissa Brown said, yes, appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. I love it.
So let's talk because we're out of time here, but I do want to mention your book that's coming out in August called Customer Transformation. So if you
Yes.
can just give us a little snippet about that. And I know you're not in pre-orders yet. We'll have you on again before August so we can talk in greater detail about customer transformation.
Yeah. So the book is called Customer Transformation. It's basically a 7-stage framework for aligning with your customers and generating business value. And the concept is a lot of what we've talked about today is that the consumer, us as consumers, customers, our needs and expectations are constantly evolving. And in order for a business to be able to keep up with that continuous evolution of the way we connect with businesses, the types of devices that we use to purchase and engage with businesses, and again, our personal needs, desires, expectations, uh, we have to be able to understand that, align with it, and keep up with it in order to be successful. And so this walks through those 7 stages and how you can do it for yourself.
Great. So we'll have to have you back on because nobody can pre-order. But how can everyone get in touch with you? I know you primarily work on Fortune 500 companies, but how can our audience get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com. And you can find my contact information there. You can reach out to me if you have a question. You can sign up for my newsletter, which I will then notify you when pre sales and sales are available for the book. You can find my podcast, ways to connect with me online. Everything is right there, chrishood.com.
So you have dropped so many golden nuggets. And the reason I like to use the word golden nuggets is because each chapter in Exit Rich is called a golden nugget. But you've given us lots of words of wisdom. You've given us advice on how to really be able to vet these marketing companies and try to see if any of them will show revenue and get some skin in the game. How to avoid the pitfalls, what separates a great marketer from a not so great marketer, and what we could be doing in AI. So I thank you so much for coming on the show. And obviously, I thank my listeners for tuning in every week to Exit Rich. And I know you're going to have to go back and watch this because it's like drinking from a fire hose. So there's all kinds of tools and strategies and things that you need to go back and reflect on and implement in your own company because knowledge is power, but implementation is key to success. And share this with your audience, your coworkers, your fellow entrepreneurs, anybody in your circle. Share this information with everyone. And I'll see you on the next episode, Exit Rich, next Wednesday. Thank you again, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Exit Rich podcast. Don't forget to check out Michelle Seiler Tucker's Build to Sell Blueprint books and Exit Rich, along with more blogs, videos, and resources at exitrichpodcast.com. Be sure to connect with Michelle on Facebook or LinkedIn and stay tuned for her next episode by subscribing in your favorite podcast player.